I can remember I was inside that detox center in an office with a clinician, and I remember that clinician picking up the phone and talking to somebody on the other line, but saying, "If you want to see what a junkie looks like, come to my office."
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
Welcome to Tulsa Talks, where we help people have meaningful everyday conversations. We have Dustin Bailey with us today, and he's going to talk about his recovery story.
Thanks for
Dustin,
having me.
thank you for being here. So, you were telling me something about a dentist appointment and the path that you took. What happened a little bit before that and led you to that? And how did you get on into the addiction because of a dentist appointment?
Yeah. So, I was at a point in my life, the 4 years prior to this dentist appointment. I had an amazing life. I was really fortunate working in the entertainment industry, and getting to kind of travel around the country. And
You were
um,
big time in it
well, I felt
for
like
a
I
young
was.
guy.
I thought I was. Yeah. It felt like it at the time. That's for sure. But anytime you're big timing it, there's a lot of things that go with that.
A lot
And
of stress, a lot of responsibility,
yeah,
a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong.
yeah, a lot of hotels, a lot of late nights, a lot of drinking. At that time, not any drugs for me, but a lot of drinking. And I had gotten my self back to Oklahoma City. I had just finished a tour, where I had been all over the country hosting parties and clubs and bars, throughout the country. And I was tired. I was exhausted, and I wanted to kind of settle down and get my feet under me and figure out what was next for me, what I was going to do
That
next.
sounds like a great idea. Take
Yeah,
a little time after
yeah,
you've had high energy output.
yeah. So I did that. I got back to Oklahoma City, and I got a normal, what I considered a normal job. I told myself that I was going to quit drinking because I had just drank so much in the 4 years previous, and I did that as well. And I was kind of at this um, calm point in my life, and I had a dentist appointment. So I went to the dentist, and I had a tooth pulled, I think is what it was, and walked out with a prescription for pain medication. And this is the early 2000s, so this is like 2005. So this is right at kind of the beginning of the opioid epidemic, but we didn't hear about it nearly as much as we have in the past decade.
Yeah, might not have knew what we know now in hindsight. They
Yeah.
might not have done what they did.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I consider myself a product of the opioid epidemic. I walked into that dentist office with my entire life ahead of me, and walked out, and in what seemed like just the blink of an eye, 10 years had gone by. Um, I took that medication. I took it as prescribed. But when it was finished, what I noticed was when I did take it, I felt better. I felt better at my job. I felt more social. I felt like I could connect more with the people around me. Um, for me, it was a positive because at that time, all of the outcomes of taking the medication were positive. And I can remember about 3 weeks into that prescription, telling myself that I'm not going to take this medication anymore. And that was my first experience with withdrawals. And I can remember being in the bathroom and realizing, like, I can't stop taking this medication. I'm sick. I'm feeling the effects of withdrawal, and I make a decision that I'm just going to continue.
Indefinitely.
Well, at least for the foreseeable future. Again, I saw it as a benefit because the results I was getting were positive. I was in a sales position at the time, so I had high energy and was able to connect with customers, and the money was coming in as a result of being able to do those things. So it was a win-win for me, and I can remember justifying it by saying, like, I didn't understand pharmaceuticals at the time, and I would say to myself, people all around me take antidepressants. This is my antidepressant. I didn't
That's,
understand the difference. I didn't, you know, we're comparing apples to oranges, really. But I
Yeah,
didn't
but you were
understand that.
self justification.
Absolutely. Early self-justification. And really no reason to quit. As I said, I was paying my bills. I was living on my own. I had a vehicle. I was going to work. I was doing well at work. At the time, the consequences of my actions were not there. So there was no incentive to stop.
Bring us a little further into it when there were consequences that were different.
The first consequence I can remember, I was in a relationship at the time, and um, at a certain point, she was taking these meds with me, and she decided she wanted to stop, and I wasn't going to stop.
Was she
Um,
able to?
she was able to stop, which we can go into a whole nother conversation about why she was able to stop and why I wasn't.
Another time.
Another time. Yeah, that's a long conversation. But she was able to stop, and it fractured our relationship because from that moment on, my purpose was much different than hers waking
Sure.
up.
Yeah, you didn't
Um,
align.
right, right. But we did that for many years. We stayed together. I continued to use. When the doctors would stop giving me medication, I started looking on the street. And for about 3 years, it was a mixture of me getting pills on the street and me getting pills from a pain management doctor, or another
How'd they
dentist.
justify giving you pain
It was
management without
easy.
any kind of reason to have pain?
It was easy. I just walk into a doctor and tell them I had back pain, and they would send me to what's called a pain management doctor, and I'd go into that pain management doctor and walk out with a prescription of oxycodone, 90 oxycodone a month. And where this really kind of turned is at that time. Um, I'd get a prescription of 90 oxycodone on Thursday, and by Sunday, I was having to go find it on the street. So I
That
would
seems like a
take
lot to me. I don't know.
it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot for somebody who has a tolerance. It's not necessarily a lot, but um, I can remember I'd take every month when I'd go to that appointment, I would take that day off of work. So all I had to do was go to that appointment, come home, and that's what I would do just over and I would just use over and over and over again throughout the entire weekend until inevitably I'd run out and back at the dealer's house.
So, what was your pain point other than your girlfriend and you not aligning, still staying together for a few years, overdoing the drugs, like you just said, because you had some tolerance built up to
Mhm.
that? What was your first pain point?
You know, there were a lot of pain points throughout that 13 years. I think the first one was about 5 years in, that relationship ended. Um, she had managed to really she was held hostage out of the 5 years. Three of them she was essentially held hostage, emotionally held hostage. But she finally gained up enough courage to end the relationship. And that was the first time my using had gone from um, snorting medication to becoming an IV drug user. I can remember that day so
She
clearly
left you, you started doing it IV.
within hours. Yeah. She
It was
left.
just hell with this. I've got
Yeah.
too much pain. This ain't all right. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get real jacked up.
Yeah. So that's when I look back, that's the moment I can remember going from I'm using because I want to use to I'm using because I cannot feel this way. Um,
Where'd
and
that lead?
to jail, to rehab, to being homeless on Venice Beach. Um, it led to all the places you don't want to be.
So you were one of those homeless freaks on Venice Beach.
I was when you imagine the word junkie, I was every bit of that. I
Yeah.
was what I call a bottom of the bag drug addict. I wasn't making millions of dollars selling drugs. There was nothing glamorous about it. If I had to wash your dishes so that I could get a bump, that's what I was going to do. Um, there was nothing glamorous about it.
How long did you stay on the streets?
I was homeless on and off for about 4 years.
That seems like a long time to be
Yeah.
to look like you look and not have severe scarring on your skin, your teeth.
Well, I've got it's covered up. I've got the scars for sure. I've done a ton of damage being an IV drug user to my veins, to my skin, to my, there's not a spot on my body that's not scarred. You just can't see it, just not my face. There's not a lot of veins in my face, I guess. But if I could find a vein, it
It
was
was
cut.
utilized.
Yeah, yeah.
So 4 years on the street, is that what you
About
just
4
said?
years, and when I say homeless, what I mean is I didn't have an address. I was going from hotels when I could afford it to couches when I couldn't to actually sleeping in my car. At the time, I had a vehicle, which was fortunate, um, but I didn't have an address.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
So what 4 years on the streets, couch surfing, whatever
yeah.
you want to call it. After that, what was the pivotal point when you decided that Dustin had enough of that and he wanted something different?
So in 2013, um, I was living out of a hotel. It was myself and a couple of other people. One of them was the drug dealer. And then myself and two other people. We were living in the hotel in Oklahoma City. And he was dealing drugs. I was using drugs. And eventually, for whatever reason, he was not very quiet about what he was doing. And eventually, um, the police caught on, and at a certain point, they raided our hotel room. Um, Drug dealer went to jail. I was able to get out without going to jail, um, but I ended up with no vehicle, living in a trap house. So this was somebody's house who was in active addiction, who was not there. We're talking no water. You know, it did have electricity, no water, no food, nothing. And I was in that house for about 4 days. Didn't eat until that fourth day. I can remember eating some white chocolate melts, like you do, like you use for baking.
Hmm.
I still can't look at those little chips without just being nauseous. But I had the guy behind that house gave me something because I was sick, and um, I took that shot, and something different happened. I just hit the ground. Um, Despite that, being the addict that I was, I fixed up the next shot and did it again. Hit the ground again, and I was really worried. I wasn't sure what happened, and I had called my best friend growing up, who I hadn't spoken to in at least 2 years, and for whatever reason, asked him to come get me. I was hungry. I was alone. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a car. I was in this house on 15th and High in Oklahoma City, and just not in a good place. I don't know why I called him. I don't know where I was going to have him take me, but I
What did
just
he
had to get
say?
out of there. He had just had a kid. He had a baby at the time, and he said he was going to put the baby down, and he agreed to come get me. And that's what real friends do. That there was a lot of, we had a lot of he had a lot of justifiable reasons to just hang up on me. I'd done a lot of bad things to the people I had grown up with. And he had every reason to not take that phone call or to hang up. And for whatever reason, he didn't. And in the time that I had done that last shot, he had he had shown up to come get me. And
So you had taken a shot, you felt bad, hit the ground, you called the fellow, and when the fellow was on his way to help you, you had taken another shot?
well, let me backtrack because the phone call happened before the shot.
Oh,
The phone call happened before the shot. Um,
before the first one.
yeah, I need to backtrack because the phone call happened before the shot. I was upset, I was sick, I was alone,
Distraught.
I was distraught, and I didn't know what I was calling him for, but he's the only person that I knew outside of that world that may help me
Hmm.
in some way. I
So what
wasn't
did
sure
he
how
do
that
when you got
was.
there?
Well, so he wouldn't meet me at the house, at that house. He refused to come to that trap house. So there was a 7-Eleven around the corner. So I walked to that 7-Eleven. And when
All
I,
jacked up on drugs.
not yet, still sick.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm still sick at this time. I get to the 7-Eleven and there's a guy out of gas. And he tells me, I'll give you $5 if you help me move my truck to the gas pump. So I did that. He gave me $5. And that was enough. I knew in my head that was enough there. I could go to the guy behind me and get something to make me not so sick. So when my buddy got to 7-Eleven to pick me up, I told him, "Hey, I need to go back to this house and get all my stuff," which was a half truth. I didn't need to get my stuff. But really what I did was I got out of the truck, ran through the house, ran through the back door, ran through the back fence, got whatever that guy would give me for $5, which wasn't a lot. It was one pill. Ran into the bathroom, fixed it up, and that's when I hit the ground the first time. So he's out in the truck waiting on me, and I'm hitting the ground, knowing that something was wrong about this. Something wasn't normal with this. Despite that, I did the second shot. Same thing, hit the ground. Something was not right about this. Um, but I was able to get up, grab my stuff, and I jump in the car. And as a good friend would do, the first place he stops is a McDonald's to get me something to eat. But by that time, I was so sick. I just couldn't eat. I had no appetite.
mhm.
And in my mind, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on with me right now. He just thinks I'm sick. Um, but in my mind, I'm like, this is something's different. And so we decide that he's going to take me to a detox center in Oklahoma City, and it's on a Sunday, so we're not sure that they're even there, but he does that. And I can remember I was inside that detox center in an office with a clinician, and I remember that clinician picking up the phone and talking to somebody on the other line, but saying, "If you want to see what a junkie looks like, come to my office." While I'm in his office, sitting right in front of him, um, mind you, I'm in the trash can vomiting, but I heard that, and it was the first time in the entirety of my addiction where I felt like I was being viewed as an animal, and it impacted me. Um, to kind of move the story along, I didn't stay at that treatment center, obviously. Number one, because of what that clinician had said, but number two, I knew whatever I was feeling, they weren't going to be able to fix. So the next place I asked him to take me is the hospital. And on our way out, that same gentleman told my buddy, "Hey, he doesn't need to go to the hospital. He's just coming off dope. It's not really a big deal." So, and that's an important piece of the story because when we get to the hospital, I'm so sick, I can't talk. I'm just shaking, shivering. So that's what he tells the hospital is like, he's coming off dope. And because of that, they let me lay there for 3 hours. And I'll never forget this moment. the the doctor comes out or the front desk people come out about 3 hours later and ask me if I still want to see the doctor. And I'm still sick, throwing up, and so obviously I tell them yes. And I'll never forget this doctor's eyes when she came out. It went from he's just coming off of dope to a medical emergency. And all of that to say I ended up in ICU for about 5 days.
Oh,
Yeah. My kidneys were shutting down. I had a blood infection. Something in what I had rigged up wasn't clean.
there's a lot of trust from junkies and dealers, isn't there?
There is, man. There is more trust than in most cases. In my case, more trust than I would have in anybody else.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You're
Just
trusting
shocking.
with trusting these guys to give you something that's not going to kill you, but going to get you high.
Yep.
That's amazing that, most people don't think about that.
Yeah.
How dangerous that is,
Oh,
especially when you're in the middle of it.
today it's a very different situation because of fentanyl. Fentanyl used to be patches. In addicts, I can remember chewing fentanyl patches, um, but not what is on the streets today.
Yeah.
The stuff that I was using, there was a 50-50 chance it could kill you. The stuff that's out there today, it's almost 100% chance it's going to kill you. And I see it week over. I mean, I've lost two people this week, two in the same day. Um, one of them to an overdose. So probably on a monthly basis, I bury somebody that I know due to fentanyl.
Real
So
deal.
real deal, man, real deal.
So you went down this road. It wasn't okay. You had time in ICU. Um, did you get clean at that time?
Well, that's so the point of this entire story is to kind of give you an example of where I was in my addiction.
Mhm.
So I spent 5 days in the ICU. Uh, they got me better. They got me well enough to leave. And that same friend picked me up from the hospital. And within minutes, I had him stop. It's about 5 miles from that hospital to my mother's house. And I had him stop at a Mexican restaurant so I could meet my drug dealer so that I could go in the bathroom and use before I went to my mom's house. So within minutes of being out of the hospital, I was using again. Yeah.
Did you have any sort of self-loathing and disgust with yourself at this time, or does that come later?
Well, I think no, yeah, I think that you know that fuels what it ends up becoming is a fuel to use more. So where maybe a rational person would feel that and adjust or pivot, somebody in active addiction, myself in active addiction, would feel that and it would fuel the next use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Can't feel this anymore. Got to do something, and I'm gonna
Yep.
do more drugs.
Yep.
So, what made you pivot from self-loathing and medicating to numb that to getting to the point where enough was enough? What was that pivot point?
There wasn't just one pivot point, to be honest. There were multiple.
Okay.
Um, I went to treatment after that. About a month after that incident happened, I went to treatment not because I set it up and wanted to go. My parents were scared, and they're the ones who set it up.
I'd be scared too.
Yeah. My mom, I can remember we drove to Grove, Oklahoma, and we went there because it was as far away from Oklahoma City as we could get without being out of the state because it's a state funded facility, so they paid for it. So I can remember the 3 hour drive there. I was high the entire drive there. I'd been up all night the night before, and we pulled in, and she's just devastated, crying, sad, and she says, "I don't know what you're gonna do after you get out of this car, but I'm not coming back to pick you up." And you know, at the time, that didn't mean a whole lot. Looking back, that set the foundation for everything that came after that. Because she didn't come back and pick me up. I had 36 days clean for the first time in 10 years. Um, I got dropped off in Tulsa with no money, no car, no job. I didn't know anybody. I had an interview at a recovery house, and that's kind of where this next phase of this journey started. I was introduced to 12-step recovery. I was introduced to the idea of a higher power and what that means for me. And um, but I got into a cycle of I would get clean, I would move into a recovery house, I would go to meetings, I would meet a girl, I'd fall in love, I would not be emotionally available for that relationship, so it would crumble, and I would go back to using. So for 3 years, from 2013 to 2016, here in Tulsa, that was what I did. I would get clean for a little bit, and then I would
Wash, rinse,
relapse.
repeat.
Yep, for 3 years until July 9th of 2016 was the last day, and
It's
um,
almost 9 years ago.
almost 9 years ago. Yeah.
What happened on that day?
So at the time, I was living in a hotel again here in Tulsa, over on 25th and Memorial, and I was boosting and you know,
I don't know what boosting is.
all right, well, let me tell you. So what I would do is I would wake up, and how I made my money is I walk into a Lowe's or a Home Depot, and I would steal something, and I would uh, I would steal something, and then I would return it. The thing is about returning these products is, number one, you have to use your ID to do it, and you can only use your ID a certain number of times. And you can only alter an ID so many times before there's just no alterations left to make. So, um, I had pulled up to my hotel, and I was in need of somebody to take something back to Lowe's, and there just happened to be a guy sitting outside who had gotten kicked out of his room, I guess, because he couldn't pay for it. And we started talking, and in the conversation, I found out that not only did he have a good ID, his girlfriend had a good ID. So I said, "Well, come stay with me. The only thing I'll charge you is you let me use your ID." And that worked for a couple of days. I would steal things, they would take them back. We'd get a gift card, and then at the time there was these all of these gift card hubs across Tulsa where you could take a gift card and get 60-70% of the value for it. So
Hmm.
you steal $100 worth of products and you get 70 bucks cash for it. That's
Hmm.
enough to keep you going till the next, couple of hours. And that's how I survived for a couple of years, but specifically at this time, and that worked for a couple of days, and then, you know, that particular couple used a substance that they were out all night. He was at the casino and he was busybody. When you use heroin, that's not necessarily the case. I was really relaxed, and I wasn't out at clubs and bars and moving around. I was in my hotel room. Uh I go to sleep one night and I wake up and my face is bleeding, and I look up and this guy is above me with what I can only describe as a hunting knife, trying to cut my face off. Um, he's in a meth psychosis, so I think he thinks that I was sleeping with his girlfriend who was asleep on the floor, and it became a battle, like, me trying to get out of a dead sleep out of that room before he stabbed me to death. And I don't know, I mean, I came up out of a dead sleep. I was in my boxers. I don't know how I got out of that room, but I fought my way out of that room. And a friend was staying in the room across from me. So I got out of that room, and we had made enough noise to where that guy had opened his door, and I ran into that guy's room. And when I calmed down, all I could think about was I had my wallet in there, I had my keys in there. The only thing that I could was thinking about was I hope he doesn't take my last shot. So it's a made up, shot for the next morning.
Yeah.
And finally, it'd been a few hours, things had died down. They had stolen my car, they stole my wallet, but they didn't steal my last shot. But the fear from that situation, I woke up the next day, on that next day, which was July 4th. I'm sorry, July 1st. I had messaged um, somebody and said, "Hey, I need to come to 12 and 12." And that's how this journey started. What I didn't tell you is in 2016, I had mentioned I had spent a few years getting clean and then relapsing. From August of 2016 to August of 2015 to July 9th of 2016, I had been a 12 and 12 client for eight episodes. So between detox treatments, I had been there 8 times in that year. And I always say that because I want people to understand that a lot of people view that as failure. But for me, I look back and I can see that kid that entire year fighting for his life, trying to get clean, trying to settle down and steer the ship the right way before it was too late. Um, and that happened July 9th.
So I know you as second man in command at a local rehab
Sure.
place. Tell us about the recovery.
Man, I was fortunate when I got to Tulsa. Tulsa has an amazing recovery community. And I was fortunate when I got here to be exposed and introduced to that recovery community. And I am part of a 12-step fellowship, which a big part of that for me is a connection to a higher power, um, and so I'm really fortunate to be a part of that 12-step fellowship. Um, that's how it starts for me. That's the foundation, and that's where the self actualization started for me. Is I need to look at the things I've said, the things I've done, and determine my part in that, and then work to figure out why so it doesn't happen again. And the first year of my recovery journey was going to work, was paying my rent, was going to recovery meetings, and it was staying out of relationships because that was a big piece of the up and down in the
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
before. So for a year, I got up, I walked to work, I waited tables, um, I went to meetings, I went to church, I did all of the things to invest in myself spiritually, and I was working at a restaurant, and the first few months of recovery, you're just happy to have a job, you can pay your bills, maybe buy a new shirt, um, but
That's progress.
it is progress. It is progress, and and
It's
you felt
going in the
like
right direction.
you felt like you conquered the world, you know.
I would think so.
Um, but eventually, you start to think about like, what am I going to do? Like, what do I want to do at the time? I wanted to start a family, and a big trigger for me was the belief that I couldn't start a family without the means to support a family. And how am I going to do that when I've got three felonies sitting behind me, and how am I going to get a good job because I don't have a college education, and all of these obstacles that I was facing in early recovery. How am I going to extend this out and scale it so that it becomes my life? Um, and things tend to happen serendipitously. I
Taking the right steps, you might step in the right direction
you
for the right
might
people to surround you to help you.
might yeah, and that plays a big role in my story. And in fact, I had been employed for about a year. In fact, it was right at a year. I was clean a year. I was employed a year, waiting tables, and I had met somebody who when it mattered, became the bridge over a crisis that could have derailed me again. And what I mean is, a little over a year after being clean, I got fired from that job waiting tables. I'd lost my temper on a Saturday night, and somebody heard it, and they said no more. And for somebody with a year clean, losing a job like that can be a crisis. It can be a reason to go back out. And because God had put somebody in my life at that moment who could serve as the bridge between that crisis and the next step, I'm where I am today. Because in that time, addict Dustin is saying, I better go re-up now before I want to and I don't have the funds to do it. So I better do this now before I want to and I can't. But my support system is saying, this isn't that big of a deal. Just go get another job. And in the conversation, she said, why don't you try to go work at 12 and 12? And, I was not the best client when I was at 12 and 12. I went to my groups. I was there. I was focused. I wasn't getting in relationships. The hustle part of me, that was a little harder to, to,
Pull back
to
the
pull
reins.
back. Yeah. I'll say this, the one benefit of going to treatment at the same place over and over and over again is you create relationships with the people that work there. And I had done that. I'd created relationships with a lot of people that worked there, but two people specifically. And I applied at 12 and 12. And it just so happened that one of the people that I created a relationship with was in a position to do some hiring. They knew who I was, they knew my past. And despite that, or maybe in spite of that, they gave me an opportunity and they hired me as an overnight tech. Told me I could work part time and started at $9 an hour. And everything that I experience today is a result of that moment there. Started as an overnight tech. I was fortunate. The time I started, a couple of people had gone on vacation. So instead of being on overnights, they allowed me to come in and train on the first shift. So instead of doing part-time overnights, I was now full-time working on that first shift. And I did everything. I ran all over that facility. If it needed to be done, I was the one that was going to do it. I was just so happy to be there. I was so happy I wasn't waiting tables. And about 3 months into that, I was doing really well. And I've got a twin brother, and he started using about 7 years before I did. Um, and he had continued to use. He had spent about 5 years in prison, 2013 to 2018. Um, and in 2018, he came to treatment. And
Where you happen to be working.
where I was working. Yeah. And because of that, I couldn't be on that primary unit where he was because it
Mm.
was a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So they moved me down to a program called transitional living, which I didn't really want to do because it wasn't where the action was. You know, it was those guys were going to work and they weren't there on the unit. And but that's what I had to do. So they moved me down there, and it actually became one of the reasons I'm where I'm at today, because it gave me an opportunity to separate myself and my skill set from the masses. I went down to that unit, I organized it, ended up running that unit, and I think the work there, the people above me started to see that, you know, maybe there's a little bit of a different opportunity here for this person.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah. You
um,
showed something a little different, and they wanted to help you become developed so that you would be something
yeah, 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 and you know, I like to tell this story. Kind of jumping around here, but there's a lot of like little moments that I look back at when I get really like nostalgic and think about where I started to where I am. And you know, humility and integrity play a big part in my recovery, and my ego plays an even bigger part in it, because for the 20 years before that, I was run by egos. You know, ego run wild is what they say.
different.
Um, and it my ego always, it made me feel better in the moment, but it always came back to damage what I was trying to do. And I can remember being in on a unit one night, and um, my coworker, who was my peer, had said something to me around a bunch of clients that to me was disrespectful and made it seem as if she was my boss. And I can remember sitting in that tech station and having a conversation with myself saying, just do your job, just do your job, just do your job. Because in that moment, I wanted to
You
react.
wanted to explode that situation?
Yeah, yeah,
Let's go.
which could have changed the trajectory of my life.
Absolutely.
Um,
But you had restraint.
I had some restraint. And from that moment on, because that felt so good in that moment, from that moment on, everything I did was done through that lens. Just do your job. Don't worry about what position you're in. Don't worry about how much money you make. Don't worry about who you're working with. Just do your job.
Yeah.
Help your clients. Serve the mission that you've committed to
Yeah.
serve. And
Become something and get paid because you are something instead of wanting to get paid to become something.
yeah, yeah.
Step into it as, and you'll be rewarded hopefully accordingly, financially or not, but you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And I
How
feel
good
like I
did that
have.
feel?
Oh man, listen, my arguments with my mom today are about me not coming to Oklahoma City enough. You know, she doesn't have to worry about me being dead in a ditch. You know, she doesn't have to.
How's your brother?
He's great. He's great. He's a business owner. He He's got 5 years clean. No, got it. It's going on 7 now. It's
Yay.
2018. Yeah, it's going on 7. You know, I'm so proud of him. I early on in Tulsa in recovery, I felt so good. And I felt so guilty about all the ways that I wasn't there for him. Um,
But you were able to be there for him when he was ready.
well, I can remember being in those meetings just praying like I wish he could see I wish he could feel what I'm feeling now. And it took some conversations and some, you know, struggles on his part to get him there, but he got there.
How much struggle did it take for you to get there?
Oh,
Why should we expect anything different for anybody else?
yeah. Yeah.
But we sure want that faster than it can happen
Yeah.
sometimes, don't
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so proud of him. We're closer today than we've ever been. Um, you know, it's just a great relationship. It's at the end of the day, I have him and he has me, and um,
we? Y'all have mom.
we have mom. We still have dad. We're fortunate. We've got
You've
both our
got your team
parents.
at work.
Got my team at work.
You've got those people that are coming in and you're helping them. But you also have those tragedies that you said earlier.
Yeah, you know, it's
How
not
do you
easy
deal with
work.
that?
It's hard, you know. I feel guilty because I feel like I'm a little bit numb to it at this point. Um, it never gets easier. This is, you know, I lost one of my staff this week um, to a medical condition, and um, that's the third staff that I've had to bury since I've been in a leadership position. And I'm so fortunate to be able to talk with those who are looking to do something different and have the ability to make an immediate impact in their life by saying yes, the same way that those two gentlemen did for me when I started. And I get to see them go from like hesitant and unsure and see them grow into these amazing employees and amazing people in the
Yeah.
process.
You think that the amazing employee is because they've become amazing people that actually care about what they're doing?
Absolutely.
So many
Absolutely.
people think that they can change their hat from this is my personal life, this is my career life,
Yeah.
this is my personal life, this is my career life. I think that God's created us to be people of consistency, to walk through caring about people, no matter if it's in our personal life or our work life, and plug into that purpose
Yeah.
that He's created you to be.
Yep.
We have people that come in to our studio, different fields of life, and the story's basically always the same. This is what I went through.
Yeah.
This was my bottom of that situation, or this was my self awareness moment. This is what's come of my life now. Some people are still before self awareness, even though they think they're self aware. And maybe I'm still there myself to a
Yeah.
certain degree. And I look forward to helping people find what that is that helps them
Yeah.
help others. And what you've done today by sharing the down life that you had to go through, to be able to care enough about yourself and those around you to get to a better place, to help those people that are down
Yeah.
by giving them a hand up and changing their life is a beautiful thing that I think can help Tulsa.
I hope so. I hope so. We, you know, I have two things that I want to say. Number one, you know, I've been incredibly fortunate to be given the opportunities that I've been given and to be trusted with the role that I'm in at Grand. Not only do I get to impact struggling addicts, I get to impact people in early recovery who are looking for an opportunity to find a purpose or to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Um, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. We provide services from crisis stabilization all the way through outpatient services. in one campus. There's nowhere else like it in the world. Somebody can be at a quick trip, intoxicated, and get picked up by the police. And instead of being taken to jail, they can be dropped off at our crisis center. And immediately we can start connecting them to services so they can go from crisis to detox to treatment to outpatient, all in one location, which is a huge difference from what's available nationally. And then I didn't tell you the best part of the story. Last story,
No. I'm enjoying it. Let's go.
I
Let's
mentioned that
continue.
a big part of I had a couple of triggers every time I'd get clean. One would be the fear of not being able to be employed. The other was I'm getting older. I'm not going to be able to start a family. I really wanted kids. I'd coached little league teams, you know, in the times that I was clean, and um, but I wanted a family. And 2.5 years ago, I was in a meeting, and my phone started blowing up. My brother, my mom, my dad, my family's trying to get a hold of me. And because of where I work and what I do, typically what that means is something negative's happened. Somebody's passed away, somebody's hurt. So I avoided answering the phone. I was going to wait till that meeting was over. But the contact attempts were so incessant that I got up and I walked out. And when I was 21, I hadn't started using yet, but I was partying and going to clubs and drinking, and
Yeah, doing all the young people
yeah,
things.
yeah. And I had a one night stand. Um, and um, 21 years later, I get a text from a kid who says, "Hey, I took a DNA test for Christmas, and I think you might be my dad." And
Wow, what a shocker.
I'm telling you, it was a life changer. Um, I had a one night stand when I was 21. Her mother had a one night stand when she was, I think she was a little bit older, but nonetheless, we were one night stands for each other. And that happened. I had moved on to my job in Las Vegas. I didn't really even know her name, to be honest with you. So it was one of those things.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
when this kid was 13, she found out that the dad that she had been living with was not her biological dad, or that her mother didn't believe that it was her biological dad. And so from the time she was 13 until 21, they were looking for me. In that time, I had moved all over the country. I had been in active addiction, and she thought my last name was something that it's not. So they couldn't find me on social media. So what ended up happening is this girl took a DNA test that her mom got her for Christmas. She matched with my sister, and they started talking, and that's how she found me. So today, because I'm clean, because I'm in the position I'm in, I've got this relationship with this girl. Her name's Keegan. She's 23. She just graduated from UCO. She's an amazing, independent, um, short. She's an amazing human being, and because I'm in the position that I'm in, because I've done this work leading up to this time, I'm able to be, I don't necessarily have to be her dad in the traditional sense, but I'm able to be whatever she needs me to be at any given moment. We have a great relationship. We talk every day. Uh,
I was going to ask you if you had children or had gotten married since, or you're out or
s-
clean.
so I'm 45. I'm single. I've never been married. Um,
But
and
you're a family man and wouldn't mind finding a wife if it was the right woman.
I'm open to that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, ladies.
Yeah, I work a lot though. I mean, we're a 24-hour facility, so 24/7 on call really all the time. But it's my life's purpose. I mean, there's nothing else I would rather do than what I do right now.
As long as we set tone and we set expectations
Yeah,
of who we are honestly,
yeah.
unlike a lot of dating apps do,
Uh,
then I think we're a step ahead.
yeah.
We had a man on earlier today talking about how does he navigate the single life
Mhm.
through all these dating apps. And I said, just be honest.
Yeah.
Just be honest. You're a great guy. You know what you want. Hopefully, there's a great girl out there for you, for
Well,
both of y'all.
If there's not, there's a lot of girls that aren't great, you know? Just kidding.
Well,
Yeah, it's something that I'm open to. I have I'm happy. I'm not lonely. I've got great people around me. I care about my employees. I care about my staff, the people I work with. I care about, the clients we work with. I care about me. I care about my family. I got more than enough love around me. So I'm not really lonely. Like there are
right.
lonely
You're not
nights.
desperate for it, but you would
No.
accept that addition into your life. I think that's the perfect
Yeah.
place for a man to be
Yeah.
and a woman to be, to come together and be whole
Yeah.
and be whole together.
It would take the right person to pull me from my serenity, that's for sure. But until then, the right person comes around, the right person comes around.
It's all good.
So,
Thanks for coming today.
thanks for having me.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?